Good morning, I'm Maddie Jansen, and this is the podcast of 17 News at Sunrise. It's everything you need to know to start your day in about 15 minutes.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning. Right now at 5, a local woman on defense after a video went viral showing a clash between her, a mother, and a young girl.
Police say Robert Forbes' death was an accident, but the case is not closed, days after he was hit by a car during a protest.
What can kids and parents expect when it's time to go back to school? We'll hear from officials and a concerned parent. This is Tuesday, June 9th, 2020.
Good morning. It is 5 a.m. on this Tuesday. The sun is up. The temperatures are beautiful right now. I just stepped outside for just a moment, and I have to say, Maddie and Kevin, even though we are, like 10 days away from summer, it definitely does not feel like it. At least it hasn't over the past couple of days.
No, and yesterday was much nicer on the wind front. Not as much winds across the area, so I'll take that. Kev, what can we expect later on today?
Well, another nice day, just a little bit warmer, and the winds will not be a problem up your way, Maddie. Just a light breeze expected throughout the day. Take a look at yesterday, and our high was 80, so slightly warmer than Sunday. Our normal this time of year is 89. And our record, again, we're not going to be reaching any type of records anytime soon. It's 107 set back in 2013. Here's a look at current conditions right now, and you've got 61 out in Bakersfield, an east-southeast wind at 3. Hour by hour, starting out in the lower 60s, 84 by noon, and by 3 o'clock, sunny and 91. Tehachapi at 37 right now, so definitely chill in the air. An east-southeast wind at 6. As we take a look at the current winds, and that is not a problem on our current wind map. And you can see hour by hour starting out in the upper 30s, 77 at noon, and by 3 o'clock you're going to be right near 80. We'll talk much more about your forecast. That's coming up in just a little bit.
All right, Kev, thanks so much. Well, a local school district confirms one of its employees was caught on camera appearing to threaten a young girl at a recent protest.
911. You need to get your wife. My daughter. Do not film my daughter.
The Bakersfield City School District confirmed it's investigating this video that has quickly gone viral. The woman seen here has identified herself as Carrie Maxwell in a statement released by her attorney. Erica Bays, the woman who recorded the video, says Maxwell began beating or berating her and her daughter while they were leaving a Black Lives Matter protest in Northwest Bakersfield on Friday. Her daughter was left in tears. Maxwell can be heard saying, "I will kill you," but in her written apology, she says she never threatened the girl. She accused Bays of being confrontational when she had asked protesters to stay away from her home. 17 News spoke with Maxwell's attorney, who says she was worried for her family's health and safety.
She lives in a residential neighborhood, and people were gathering near her home. She went out to ask them to move away. She has her son and her mother were both at risk for COVID, and she was in a bad place at a bad time and made a statement that people have spun to make it much more severe than it was.
In the statement, Maxwell says in part, "When I heard protesters gathering near my home, loudly chanting profanities, I became overwhelmed with anxiety and fear. I called the police and was told there was nothing they could do." You can read her full apology on our website, kget.com.
5:03 now, days after a protester was hit and killed by a driver during a nighttime march in the street. Bakersfield police continue to investigate. 17's Robert Price has the latest.
Here's what we know to be the case. Wednesday night at 10:23 p.m., Robert Forbes was struck by a car driven by Keith Moore of Bakersfield, who confirmed his involvement to 17 News. Forbes died 2 days later from his injuries. Beyond that, theories on the what and how have abounded all across social media, some of them false. Here's what Bakersfield police, based on witness statements and visual evidence from stationary cameras, say is not the case. Forbes was not kneeling in the street. Moore was not speeding. Moore was not driving with his lights off. Moore did not drive away from the scene. An open and shut accident, right? So why is BPD still investigating? Because, according to BPD spokesman Sergeant Nathan McCauley, questions about the driving conditions and other circumstances of that moment in time persist.
All of these reports will come together. We have statements from out there of the scene that witnessed the incident. We have a good number of statements that say that the driver was braking and was attempting to avoid the collision. We also have other statements that say that the act was intentional and believe that the driver ran them over intentionally. All of these will go in there.
Of the witness statements taken by BPD, Macaulay says 2 people said they thought the incident was purely an accident, and 2 said they believed the driver may have hit Forbes on purpose. One of those was Quinn Wilson, a reporter for the Bakersfield Californian, who was covering the march for the paper that night. Quinn confirms that Forbes was walking, not kneeling, that Moore had his lights on, and that he pulled over within a block of the accident scene. But something else, too.
I heard the car's engine accelerate prior to the collision and after the collision. So that I think it was the sound of because all of the traffic had been very careful around the protesters earlier prior to the incident, and then I heard a clear acceleration, and then that brought the car to my focus.
We reached out to Keith Moore Sunday evening, but he respectfully declined to comment. It's not known if he has hired an attorney. In Bakersfield, Robert Price, 17 News.
The man accused of plowing his car through protesters last month is set to make his first court appearance. Investigators say Michael Tran was the man behind the wheel when this car sped into a crowd back in May. It happened during the first local protest in downtown Bakersfield. BPD says Tran injured a 15-year-old girl. 17 News has discovered Tran has a lengthy criminal record, including one case where he pleaded no contest to attacking a man with a tire iron. His charges stemming from the protest include attempted murder, and he is scheduled to be arraigned in court at 3 o'clock this afternoon.
A high school picture is coming back to haunt a local police officer. The Bakersfield Police Department says it discovered an old picture of one of its officers wearing blackface as part of a Halloween costume. This happened before 2010, according to BPD. The BPD says that the photo was posted on social media and also included in the officer's high school yearbook. Police Chief Greg Terria says he immediately placed the officer on paid leave and asked Internal Affairs to investigate. Chief Terry says, in part, quote, "The use of blackface in any context is inappropriate and offensive. We do not condone any behavior that degrades members of our community."
The coronavirus pandemic will give the world economy its worst blow in 80 years. The World Bank predicts the global gross domestic product will shrink by more than 5% this year. Europe and the U.S. are expected to fare even worse, with the U.S. economy contracting by more than 6%. That's despite trillions of dollars in aid that governments rolled out to keep businesses afloat. Down the road, the World Bank expects investment, trade, and supply chains to stay sluggish in the near term. On top of that, the U.S. labor market is taking its biggest hit since the Great Depression. The report expects the U.S. economy to rebound next year. However, the American Association of Business Economics says the biggest risk to the U.S. right now is a second wave of infections.
More parts of the California economy have the green light to reopen. 17's Karen Waugh listened in as Kern Public Health explained which businesses can now get back to business and which ones will have to wait.
Now in Kern County, you can go camping if you want, and your kids can go to summer day camp before schools start back up this fall. You can dine in restaurants and bars, and your local gym might be reopening soon. As for movies, they're allowed back in Kern County to film, and professional sports might be back on your TV screens, just without an audience. More is also reopening in the tourism and recreation industries, things like hotels, casinos, museums, and sites like arcades and bowling alleys.
For those of you wondering, well, what businesses are not open, the state has not allowed nail salons to reopen. I get calls from tattoo shops in Kern County. You may not open.
However, hair salons and barber shops have been open locally for a few weeks. As for entertainment,
movie theaters cannot open yet. Things like laser tag, karaoke. Even though bars are open, you can go sit at a bar. If you're going to go out for a night of dancing at a nightclub establishment, that is currently not allowed.
In sports,
even though pro sports are allowed and there is guidance for pro sports, without an audience, there is no guidance, no directive on youth sports.
Many of the guidelines for reopening these businesses is similar, like scheduling time slots, enforcing social distancing, encouraging masks, and taking temperatures regularly.
Under the guidance that has been provided by the state, when they comply with that guidance, there is a relatively low risk of transmission of COVID-19.
Though 12 new sectors are reopening, Kern County has been seeing an increased number of new COVID cases each day. About a month ago, our daily average was 30. Now, it's about 50. And it's unclear if this number will increase with recent protests.
One of the most contributing factors to this is the additional testing that we've implemented, now allowing those that are asymptomatic to be tested.
One of the state's measures to determine reopening is having fewer than 25 cases per 100,000 residents in the past 2 weeks. So in Kern's case, fewer than 225. Kern currently fails that test, with 896 cases in the past 2 weeks.
There could be repercussions for Kern County should our community not take this seriously and not implement these preventative measures.
Now, the county has offered a total of about $1 million in loans to small businesses that may have been impacted by COVID-19. For a full list of those restrictions for those 12 sectors, head to kerncounty.com. In Bakersfield, Karen Waugh, 17 News.
Well, students are set to return to school in the fall, but there are guidelines districts must follow to reopen safely. 17's Taylor Schaub spoke with both county superintendent of schools and local parents to see how both sides are feeling about going back to school.
Monday, California's Superintendent of Schools, Tony Thurmond, outlined new safety guidelines as districts across the state prepare to reopen. But here locally, there's still somewhat a divide between parents and school officials on how next year will play out.
We have worked to provide some guidance to our districts on the kinds of things that they should do and could do to accommodate our students being back on campus.
Schools across the state will look a lot different this year when they reopen, according to new detailed guidelines from the Department of Education. Monday, the state released a 55-page guidebook outlining recommendations for facial coverings, social distancing, temperature checks at school entrances and bus stops, and sanitation stations. The recommendations also included rotating students into their campuses twice a week and allowing them to use distance learning the rest of the time.
But we know that many of our students really need in-class instruction.
Still, it will be up to the districts to decide for themselves.
There will not be a one-size-fits-all approach because every school district is vastly different.
The Kern County Superintendent of Schools office has been well ahead of the curve, creating a task force to give districts across the Golden Empire a chance to voice their concerns.
One of the best practices that came out of the task force's work was to ensure that school districts are engaging their stakeholders, parents, and staff on the best ways to reopen.
Jason Cohen has 4 small children and is concerned about social distancing in the classroom and the staggering of school hours.
There's a lot of people out there that just don't know what to do. There's a lot of working families out there. We're doing a massive disservice to everybody, and the kids are at the bottom of the barrel, so they're going to get it the worst.
And while he understands that safety should be a top priority, he says these new guidelines could have a severe impact on his children's social and emotional well-being.
It's not possible. In theory, you can write whatever you want down on paper, but the fact of the matter is these are kids.
The Kern County Superintendent of Schools office says they are actively listening to the concerns of parents and sending out surveys so they can accommodate the more than 25 districts in the county. In Southwest Bakersfield, Taylor Schaub, 17 News.
Yesterday, Public Health confirmed 74 new cases in Kern as well as 2 more deaths. That brings our total to 2,804 cases. We've seen 47 people die from the coronavirus in Kern County. 1,824 people in Kern have recovered. 863 people remain isolated at home, and 60 people who contracted the virus are hospitalized. More than 29,000 tests have come back negative. Over 800 tests are still pending. Still to come this morning on Sunrise, George Floyd will be laid to rest today. And this all comes as lawmakers take a new look at how states or at how police officers are enforcing Welcome back. Your time now is 5:23. Protesters nationwide are calling for defunding and dismantling police departments.
Tracy Potts has more on how that demand's playing out in the nation's capital.
Alex and Manny, good morning. Good morning, everyone. This has become a question of pouring more money into law enforcement or community services. Protesters have taken a stand, and now so has the president.
The rallying cry of protesters nationwide, now the latest battle in Washington. Should police get less money?
We won't be defunding our police. We won't be dismantling our police. We won't be disbanding our police.
You are risking officers requesting for help or backup and it not being there.
Supporters question cities giving a third of their budgets to law enforcement.
We all have to step back and ask, is that the smartest and best way to actually achieve safety?
New York and LA are considering slashing millions from police and redirecting those funds to community services.
I'm all for social work and mental health. But call me old-fashioned. I think you may actually want a police officer to stop a criminal and arrest him before we try to work through his feelings.
More than 200 Democrats are pushing a bill that stops short of defunding police. It bans chokeholds, no-knock warrants, makes lynching a federal hate crime, and creates a national database to track police misconduct.
Democrats are going to fight like hell to make this a reality.
Republicans are working on a separate plan to weed out rogue cops.
We'll look to find ways to correct those circumstances where we can.
The death of one man sparking protests and a national conversation about the cost of safety.
President Trump is against defunding police, and so is his rival, Joe Biden. The former vice president's spokesman says he's for community policing and body cameras. I'm Tracy Potts, 17 News.
The public viewing for George Floyd was held in Houston yesterday. Hundreds of mourners lined up at the Fountain of Praise Church to pay their respects, including Texas Governor Greg Abbott. This was the third and final memorial service for Floyd. Services were held in Minneapolis and in Rayford, North Carolina last week. George Floyd will be buried at the Houston Memorial Gardens in a private funeral service later today. And while only family and friends are allowed inside, it will be streamed online for the public.